Morning, bud.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Oh, good, thanks, man. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. We speak at last.
I know, finally, man.
Yeah. I know. It's been a while, hasn't it? Started chatting like right at the start of the year, and yeah, been kind of communicating on WhatsApp and stuff, and finally got a little Zoom in.
Yeah, man. How's everything been anyway? Good.
Yeah, good man. Super busy as you could probably tell. It's been like it's been very busy few months, but because I quit my job in August, right? And there's just been a kind of a bit of a ramp on, like a bit of a ramp on in terms of me having like some free time now, because before it was just like ridiculous. So I've got like in theory I've got like a few days now in the week, but I'm using that time at the moment with music production, and I've really stepped that up significantly now that I've got the time to give it, because before it was just like little dots here and there, an hour here and there, and it's not long enough. So I've kind of got to the point now where I finally got some tracks that I'd actually put forward to like the label that my imprint's part of. We've got A&R meeting tomorrow, so we'll see what's going to happen with that. Usually, what happens in my experience is you present something that you feel quite happy with, and then at the point you play it to them, you realize it's actually shit, and you have to like kind of start again. But you're like one step up the ladder of like a few. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, classic, man.
yeah. How about yourself, man? Have you been?
Busy. I mean, summer's been hectic. A lot of midweek gigs in Ibiza, which has disrupted the Monday to Friday routine, but I wouldn't stop for anything. And then, yeah, 6 shows at the weekend, man. Definitely can't complain. A lot of traveling, an intense few months still to come. But then January, I am staying committed to a few weeks off, even though, you bound to get offers and stuff like that. But I think go full power now until the end of the year, and then, studio, chill, relax. Oh shit, my phone's ringing. And then ready to go again, man.
Yeah, cool, man. So what was your thing like? What was your thing in Ibiza like? I was like, I've seen you on a few posters when I was over there myself. What's the
Pretty
sort of
interesting to be honest, mate, because when the season started, I didn't really have that many shows. I probably confirmed maybe like five or six. And then as the summer went on, more things popped up. I did Rossi's party at 528, which was the old zoo project. That was insane. I played for Michael Bibby at Ushuaia, did Solid Grooves, DC10, Circle Loco. So yeah, the summer just kind of picked up momentum as it went on. And yeah, for me, that place is the North Star of kind of DJing for me. Like it's always where I loved going to when I was younger, and also where I dreamt of playing. So like it's been kind of an out of body experience playing, in these booths that I was literally, dreaming of.
Yeah, mate, like totally. Yeah, I've yeah had a similar experience myself. Well, I don't think I played there as much as you this summer, but yeah, just going over there to play is just unreal. Like, I think the one of the highlights was I did like a back-to-back set with Danny Howard at Cafe Mambo, and that was just like mind
That's still on
blowing.
my bucket list, Cafe Mambo.
Yeah,
Like
it's
well,
proper bucket list.
that's an iconic Ibiza show. So hopefully next year, Cafe Mambo, if you're listening, I'm waiting.
Mate, I'm sure you'll get that one in the bag. But yeah, and then how have they changed Benamusa Park then? Do you still play in like the Seal Pit or whatever, or is that gone now? Or like
Yeah, that's where we played. That's where the set was for that. But I think they're just doing different arenas for different parties, etc. But it was sick. Open air for me as well is proper Ibiza vibes. So daytime, sun was shining. That's what it's all about.
yeah, totally. Like when we first started going to Ibiza properly on clubbing trips, like it was still going off at oh, what was it called? Like where Jet Apartments was in Playa d'Embossa. It
Yeah,
was
that's where I
like Bora
stayed for the
Bora,
very
right?
first time. Yeah, Bora Bora Beach. That's where I stayed when I first went 10 years ago. And I was telling a mate the other day, you'd wake up in jet apartments, tunes are pumping, people are partying like no tomorrow.
Yeah, it was just a vibe. If you looked at it now, you look at Jets a bit like low rent and stuff, but it was just when it was absolutely rammed full of people, you don't really care. It was kind of like a poor man's version of Ushuaia, in that you had your little room going right onto where there were people going crazy. And I remember for the first 5 seconds when I saw it, I was like, fuck, I wouldn't want to stay here. And then like about 5 seconds later, I thought, fuck, I'd like to stay here. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
quality. It was such a good
yeah,
vibe, man. And then when the planes went over, everyone was like cheering and stuff. It was
yeah. Funny. That's literally where I stayed the very first time I went, and I think it's a unique experience to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and then like the festival that you've done, that was early July, wasn't it? Around the 6th of July, right? How did
Hide
that
and
go
Seeks the
off?
festival. This was year five. It was very much just like the DJ process, one foot in front of the other each year. Always hoping that it would turn out kind of how it did this year. It's been a long, old journey, but yeah, we smashed this year. We had um, Rossi, Christosi, Apollonia, Trauma, like a really good lineup, the biggest numbers we've done. And the most important thing was the overall feedback after it was literally insane. So it set us up nicely for next year. But yeah, it's a really fun project to work on and really fulfilling, but it's also extremely stressful.
Very tough market at the moment, isn't it, for festivals, right? I've seen more than a couple that have had to pull the plug, and like, you know, events that are struggling, and all competing for consumers that have got a bit less money in their pocket than they have done previously and stuff. So yeah, tough markets. If you're filling something up like that, getting a big name DJs, getting good feedback, that's really excellent, mate. It's really good to see, really good to hear, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I think just the fact that we were able to put it on and we sold out with months in advance, that alone is kind of a token to all the hard work we're putting over the years that people, you know, really see the value and enjoyment in hide and seek.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's cool. And then like I've got a couple of questions actually that are a bit more personal. They're not really personal, but like I noticed that you've been doing like some running, right? So like
Yeah, man.
is that like something you've like always done, or is something that you've gathered a bit of pace with recently, no pun intended,
I've
or
always trained like for over a decade now, but because of, you know, partying all the time, not say all the time, I think just the lifestyle I'm in can hinder progress in some areas. So like I have trained for a long, long time. I just started to document a bit more online and, you know, it resonated with a lot of people and you know, and I know it's a positive thing, you know, to share the other side of life, not just the highlights of playing these big gigs, etc. I kind of like the idea of showing people that there's another side to the things I'm interested in. But yeah, I've done it for ages, just decided to share it more online and it's kind of took on a life of its own and, you know, I've connected with people. You know, it's also good to go to new places and be able to run and train, etc. So yeah,
yeah, I've noticed on social media, I noticed this very early on, people are like super interested in like elements of your life and your background, and they want to like kind of actually feel that they've got to know someone and there's some authenticity there, and that they're getting to know the real, you know, the real person behind all of the kind of the social content, and that stuff seems to resonate like really well, and that's cool. But like with the running thing, like I noticed that one of the organizations that I sometimes play with, like Pull Up, you know, those guys at Pull Up Recordings, right? They do
yeah.
like a day where they'll do like, you know, it's like a rave thing, but they'll actually have like a run like in the day as well, right? And it's just like a bit of a, like you just said, it's a bit of a weird combo because the, you know, the party lifestyle just makes the training and the healthy thing quite hard for a number of reasons, especially as a DJ when you're traveling around quite a lot. And actually what I've discovered, because I've only been doing this a short time, is it's quite hard to find like sometimes to eat healthily at all, right? Because depending on the hours, if you're doing 2 gigs in a day, if you're traveling, whatever, sometimes you're just, your only choice is what's available at the services at 10 p.m. or whatever. If you haven't planned it out. I actually took a sandwich and ate it in the car the other day, kind of like something my parents do, you know. But it was like I thought it'd be because of my timings on the day, it was the only way I'd get to eat anything healthily. But Pull Up are actually doing like, you can actually go along and do like a 5K run with them. And then later on that day, there's like a rave, and it kind of, I'm not sure if it quite balances out like the health thing, but it probably helps a bit, right? It's quite hard being healthy with this lifestyle. So it's good to see that you're doing something in that area. So,
Yeah, I know it sounds cliche, but for me personally, I've noticed that when the scales start to kind of lose its balance and I'm partying a bit too much, you know, neglect training, eat worse, like just a mental state is just not as good. Like I know deep down that um when it's all said and done, it's a really cringe saying, but health is wealth. Like I couldn't just do this occupation and lifestyle if I didn't train. And also I think with the running thing, you know, no matter how fit you get, you're always pushing yourself the same. The feeling's always the same when you train hard. I think it's important to do things which, you know, aren't just cheap dopamine. I think you really need to work hard in some areas and just humble yourself and just be in a place where, you know, you're almost like a white belt, you know, training with people that are faster than you or stronger than you, or you know, it doesn't need to be running or whatever. It could be something like jujitsu, it could be swimming or a triathlon. I think it's always good to do something where you're not necessarily a professional at it.
yeah, totally. I mean, I'm doing like, so at the moment, I'm doing 45 minutes on the spin bike every morning, right? Like without fail. And I do about 15 minutes of toning. And in truth, it's probably not really quite enough, right? But it's certainly better than nothing. And it's like, you know, I'd hate to think what I'd look like if I wasn't even doing that, you know, because it's just, it's hard. It's just hard, you know, temptation's always there. And then I was kind of worried when I started on this trajectory that, that I'd kind of go back to what it was like when I was probably like, you know, my 20s and stuff. Because, you know, if you're out Friday, out Saturday, and there's always temptation there, and it's always like, you know, you've got your rider and drinks and all that, right? And the temptation's always there. But I was kind of worried that I might get sucked into that lifestyle a bit again, because obviously I've had my partying days when I was a bit younger. But the last few months I've probably like been quite the opposite, and actually it's sort of pushed me the other way, because it's too easy to get into that thing of just like drinking, you know, boozing and stuff the whole time. And, you know, I'm not like teetotal, I'm not like one of those people, but I'm not like totally sober. But I've noticed that my performances are quite a bit better as well when I'm sober as well. And it's like, you know, when I started, it was a little bit of a novelty, and I just kind of got going and have a few drinks and stuff, have a bit of a party with the crowd and stuff. But it's a bit different now, and I want to be on a trajectory that's got more longevity in it, and want to be taken seriously by the industry. And also, people are paying good money to come and see me, and promoters are paying to book me. And don't think it's really fair to kind of compromise that just so that I can enjoy myself a bit more, and do something that might make my performance like slightly worse. So I've probably actually been more sober the last few months like than I've ever been at any other point in history since I was probably like a late teenager, which is not really what I expected. But it's still quite hard with the eating and stuff to stay healthy. That's like something I've really got to do a bit of work on, you know, because it's just the temptation's always there, especially when you're kind of bored all day, when you're like, you know, if I'm like Saturday, I've flown somewhere on a Saturday morning, and you've got like hours to kill, and you know, it's like shitting it down with rain outside, and you just, you know, you don't feel like going for a walk or whatever, and you're just like looking forward to lunch, and dinner is like, you know, the focal point of the day. So it's quite hard to then go and have something healthy, but it's all part of the learning experience, I guess, of getting a bit more discipline.
Yeah, it's good you found the balance, man. I'll be honest, I've partied a lot this summer, and it's been good though, because you know the first Circle Loco show, you know, first at Creamfields, all these, and friends come with me, so I have really enjoyed it, and I've got no regrets at all. I just make sure, you know, on a Monday, like I'm completely chilled in the week, back to training, back to work. I've got other businesses that I work on, so there's always something to do. There's always you know, meetings or studio sessions, etc. And I just make sure that in the week I get back on that. Because you know, I think if you let it spiral, you know, into a full 7 days of chaos and partying, drinking, I do think then it can get a bit of a problem. But for me, I've enjoyed a lot of it. But now I've kind of brought the hammer down a bit again, and I'm going to try and keep it relatively chilled and more studio time and things like that. But yeah, I think summer is the time to have fun though.
I think, mate, to be honest, one of the things I like about you, it's very inspirational watching you, and you're something of a positive role model to people as well, right? You've got so many different things going on that you're very successful at. You know, your social media is very good as well, right? And you're good at kind of like highlighting the right thing and putting stuff out there. But I think for like, you know, for the younger kids, it's very positive seeing the balance between, and you know, I'm not sober, completely sober either. I've like partied, have a bit of fun, and I've like toned that down quite a bit, right? But it's the same. I think same thing with you. You know, it's like people see that it is possible to follow your dream, to work hard, be successful, do well, but also to be able to let your hair down, have a bit of fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
I
right?
think I do think there's sometimes a bit of a negative narrative towards drinking and stuff, and not enough kind of light shone on, you know, this guy has gone on a few beers on a Saturday night, he's had fun, and he did wake up the next day and he was okay, and then Monday he's gone and done a normal life. I think it can be glorified actually a bit too much sometimes. Maybe this will upset some people, but you know, saying, oh, you know, you've got to be sober to go and do X, Y, and Z. Whereas I think, you know, just encourage moderation. And I think being surrounded by the right people is helpful as well. So the people I party with, they're also, you know, either, well, not either, but some of them are very good runners, very successful in business, etc. And we all kind of, you know, we know when enough's enough and things like that, but we also know when to let our head down and have fun.
I think the industry to me seems more professional than what my perception of it would have been. And I wasn't like working in the industry like, you know, kind of in the 90s when I was going out clubbing a lot, right? But I definitely had a impression of it. Well, my impression of it on entering it was that it's a lot more professional than I would have assumed, right? And there's a few places like, you know, like clubs that you can go, the more kind of grimy places, the more underground places where it's kind of a little bit more rough around the edges and a bit more like relaxed, shall we say. And then there's other environments I've been to, like drum sheds, where it absolutely would not be okay to be like rolling up there pissed or like in a state or whatever, because it's just a big business, and you're just, you know, it's like a privilege to play at places like that. And it's, you know, there's a lot of money involved. People are paying a lot of money to come to those shows. You know, I've paid £100 to go to drum sheds before. So like, you know, there's an expectation that you're gonna get a professional product in exchange. And those days of like, you know, DJs being in a state and stuff, I think it's like, you know, it's still good fun if you're going along and it's like a tiny little venue and, you know, whatever, and you're on a vibe with the crowd and stuff. It's good fun. Like, never say never, but the
The
my
time and a
perception is,
place, the time and a place, I think
yeah, totally.
in your brain. And I think it can be easy for, I think for some people, even myself, having a few drinks while playing a big gig, I do think I actually play better because I'm a bit more confident. But there is that line between, a few drinks and then, a few too many drinks and you're actually a bit sloppy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think things have changed drastically because even when I started, like, I've been doing this like 12 years, so like a long, long time. So when people kind of say, he's come out of nowhere, etc., I see sometimes comments like that. I'm just like, yeah, I've done this at ages. I think when I was first going out, the DJs were, super crazy. But I think there's multiple elements to it as well that, with TikTok, you've got to be careful what you do as well. If you're absolutely smashed, you'll wake up the next day with a video of yourself. Like that's happened to me multiple times. Like we've done after parties in Manchester, and people seemed shocked to see that DJ is intoxicated at 3 in the morning after playing all day long.
What a
Like, wow,
surprise.
huge flash, guys. But I kind of see the funny side of it. But I'm also surprised how many people. I think there is that thing now of people almost expect people to be sober, but this industry is based on partying. Now that's how we've got this far, really. And I think um, if everyone went sober, I think dance music and raves would most likely actually, reduce in size. Whereas actually we're in a vibe in a moment now where I feel that parties are extremely busy and people are all going raving again. I think we're in a good spot. And I do see some people talking about the problem that small clubs aren't that busy at the moment, which, they are the bread and butter of the scene. But I would like to think that with the rise of big crowds going to bigger venues, I think hopefully next year you may see like an overspill of people then going to smaller venues, because all these kids now are seeing these big venues and they're all really busy. I think it's a really good way to get them into this ecosystem of house music, etc., and techno, blah, blah, blah. And then next year, we should see some smaller clubs busier again because I know there is that problem now of like places shutting down, etc.
Yeah, totally. I was talking to Ben Hemsley a couple of days ago, and he's looking at doing a tour of smaller venues specifically. And there's a thing about making connection with your audience that's obviously like much easier to do. I mean, I've not played like loads and loads and loads of gigs, but I've played big ones, I've played small ones, right? And with a small audience, you can over the course of the night, you can kind of almost make eye contact and vibe with almost everyone in the crowd, and it feels quite homogenous. And it's more intimate, and you can also, my experience is you can be more experimental like musically, and you can push the boundaries a bit more, and play records that you think, well, I'm not sure about that one, don't want to kind of lose my crowd. If you're at a big festival, or you've got thousands of people there, you don't want to kind of lose the energy thing. So it's tempting, I find, to not exactly play to the lowest common denominator, but always to try and pick something that's going to have more of a mass appeal to the audience. Whereas if you've got a small crowd, you've taken on a little journey with you, somewhere like Joshua Brooks or Hidden or something like that, right, which are banging venues. I'm very, very lucky to have played there this early in my career. But you can take people on a bit of a journey with you, and then you can like dip your toe in something a bit deeper, see how it goes down, and then if it works well and people are still vibing, you can kind of keep it at that level for a bit, and then maybe try something a little bit deeper again. Whereas with the big crowds, it's always, I find it's like, always like thinking like I've just kind of got to keep these guys.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for both, right? And I think these bigger venues, it's that thing I always come back to of like education, entertainment. And I think when you play these big venues, you've got to be on the side of entertainment. Like people paid a lot of money, it's big room vibes. I don't think that is the time to try and be, super smart with what you're doing, experimental and stuff like that. But I think if you're doing a smaller headline show and people have come to see you, and that says a lot in the fact that, they trust you as an artist and they're going to want to hear some different stuff. So, yeah, I agree with you totally on that point.
So you mentioned techno earlier. Like, what sort of, do you listen to any genres of electronic music, or like any genres? Like, firstly, just in dance music, like outside of like the stuff that you play. I'd kind of summarize what you play as somewhere between deep house and tech house, like in that. Like,
Yeah.
would you agree with that? Firstly, or
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, like, I've been collecting records for a long time, so I've got a big array of stuff, from like garage to more harder stuff. But like, I don't actually listen to a lot of electronic music outside of the DJing context. I listen to like Stone Roses, more like 80s rock stuff. Um, just kind of bit of everything, to be honest. But at the moment, most of the electronic music I do listen to is usually in a context for like preparing for a set. Um, I've definitely got into more instruments and vocals recently, just collaborating with people like Prosper. We work with some vocalists, and I do see myself as time progresses trying to work with more musicians. I feel like it's kind of a new challenge for myself. And I found when doing so recently, it's kind of reignited a spark towards production. Because some of the stuff I've previously been making, you work with samples and things like that, you're a bit limited in a way. And it kind of feels a bit more like, it feels like you can create more timeless pieces when you're working with, vocalists. If you're writing lyrics, if you're, suggesting different melodies, harmonies, etc. in the moment, I feel like you've got much more flexibility versus using just samples and things like that. But yeah, to answer your question, it's kind of like everything. Drum and bass is what got me into this. People high contrast, things like that. I like dubstep. Like people like Banger, Scream, etc. Digital Mystics and things like that. Like in the early days, so I've got quite a broad taste, but I don't actually actively kind of like dig out for new drum and bass and things like that these days. But if I'm going for a run, sometimes I might put on like high contrast radio on Spotify.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I love high contrast, like absolute classic. I mean, I played like I don't play a lot of drum and bass out, right? It's just just a couple of big ones a year, right? And normally what I do is I'll try and play like stuff like high contrast. Actually, I'll try and do a bit of a history lesson and go back records from 0 to 20 years old, but I don't play the really obvious stuff that everyone knows that their mum and dad know and stuff, because it's more of tunes that were big on the underground, but you'd only know if you were kind of a raver back in those days. And I've done it a couple of times, and it's gone down really well. I did one at Drum Sheds and one at Boomtown on Valve Sound System, which again was a massive privilege to play on. But I've got something at the weekend where the promoter has inexplicably put like drum and bass set or something without consulting and stuff. So, and nice. It's really, really young crowd. It's like a student union type event. So I thought, like, I'm not sure this is the place to do like a 20-year history of drum and bass. So instead I've reached out to some of the big players in drum and bass, like Simula and Taxman and like Headex and Boo and stuff. And I've got like some of the jump up stuff, and it's like the sound a couple of years ago I wasn't very keen on at all, because it's kind of that kind of frog croaking type noise, and yeah. It's not really what drum and bass is about for me. Drum and bass is more about like a bass type sound. But I've kind of always kept my kind of toe in the water, like dipped my toe in the water of like listening to the newer stuff, and it has changed a bit over the last year. And I think it's a lot better now. It's in a better place than it was a year ago, and I've actually got some pretty killer tracks on my stick. So I'm going to do a set that's half garage and then half jump up, and I think it's going to surprise the audience. But I wouldn't just play something for the sake of playing it. They're tunes that I genuinely really like, and I'm going to make my own mix to listen to in the car and stuff as well. But I think that sound is like, it kind of wasn't so keen on it a little while ago, and it's in a better place now than it was, and I think that's important, because I couldn't see it going on much longer how it was a while ago. It was kind of almost like a fight for who could make the silliest sounding like noise. Wasn't really what I consider music to really be about, but it seems to be in a better place now from what I can make out.
Yeah, I'm not really following the drum and bass scene too much, but I do notice kind of the odd comment here and there, and I see like the odd diss thrown from a drum and bass raver to a house raver on TikTok in the comment section of like, you must be a drum and bass raver then. That's about as much as I see.
You just like every genre you're going to get that, right? And you get people that are devoted and committed to the genre, so tribalistic about it. And then there's going to be good and bad music in every genre as well. There's some really shit hot house music, like stuff that you and Chris Dussy and Max Dean are doing, and then there's a load of people that are just kind of in a different place on their journey and not doing stuff that's particularly original. And it's the same with every genre, right? There's always been like some really good stuff, and the cream floats to the top, and then there's some like kind of okay stuff and mediocre stuff, and then utter crap. You get that in any genre of music. And I think I guess the difference is if you don't know where to look, right? And you're only, because I get people that watch my channel that say stuff like, oh, I'm really into metal music, and I go to download and stuff, and I've never really considered techno something I'd listen to, but I've heard some of it on your channel. It sounds really good, and I'm kind of giving it a go now. And I was thinking, if you'd never listened to like trance, or you never listened to house music, you never listened to techno, and you just thought, right, I'll just give it a quick go and put it in on Spotify, you might not actually hear the good stuff, right? And you might form an impression of that genre as being, because you'd only hear the commercial stuff that's designed for commercial success and doesn't necessarily have that depth to it that makes a genre endure. So I think as part of what I like doing is kind of exposing people to the good stuff within a genre. I like the fun, the more accessible, obvious music as well, right? It's got its place too, but you in a set that I play, I can put a bit of both, like do a bit of both, play some stuff that's a bit deeper, some unsung heroes, unsung gems, and then some of the stuff that's a bit more accessible as well, I guess with what you do, it's a little bit more on the deep side of things, right? And you've spent quite a long time building that cohort of people that are like, you know, that have kind of followed you on your journey and are like quite into that like sort of deep type sound. And that's a really nice thing to see something get so big that's so credible and kind of so serious as well. You know, it's like it's just a really nice thing to see that in the music scene.
Yeah, it's been organic, man. I've never really intentionally tried to make a big record. Something to me, a tune that came out early this year. I think it's got like 3 million streams now.
Wicked tune.
Yeah, and I really didn't when I made that tune last. It was like between Christmas and New Year, in 2023. I really didn't think too much of it. Kind of made this track, ended up re-recording the vocals of a real vocalist and things like that. And like I sent it to a few friends. No one really thought anything of it. I didn't think, okay, I've made something here which can, I wouldn't say it's got like huge commercial success, but it's definitely for the area of the genre I'm in, like it's got a lot of plays. But yeah, like that thing kind of caught on a life its own. And then that definitely allowed a lot more people to discover my music. And then I put some other tunes out this year, such as Jammers Pumping and Bass to the Top. And, in the kind of, if you look at, house music through a wide lens, they're still pretty minimal tracks, but they've definitely seemed to have got the attention and interest of people who I wouldn't say normally you'd think, you show them a track that all kind of sounds the same, beats and bass or whatever. But I think the tracks are part of this year have definitely attracted a new audience and allowed me to pick up, some new fans, etc.
I'd consider that to be one of the biggest house records of the year, to be honest. Like out of the non-commercial like stuff, it was just like absolutely everywhere all summer. Like
yeah, it's crazy because I think about for me this summer the tunes that like I've been tapping through a lot, and you hear Porter's Too Cool to Be Careless. These are in a different kind of league to mine, but there's the Adam Port one called Move. And there's another did the 24 track, and then another one. Like to me, they're like songs of this summer that I'll look back in a few years and they'll remind me of this moment. And I hope, and I think I have done, like created that moment myself with something to me. Like it's got a lot of streams, got played a lot on the radio. Every time I play it, phones come out. So it's a proud one for me to know that I created something which hopefully will be I say it loosely, but kind of in the history books of the music that got played in this summer, which is something that I really wanted to do for a long time.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, totally. One of the biggest tunes of the year, like for house music. Yeah, definitely. Like there was even a human Shazam of it. Do you remember that?
I saw that, man. That was funny. Yeah, that was funny. Made me laugh.
You must have got loads of tags when that went up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions about like the music production and stuff, right? So and like your DJing thing, right? So from a DJing point of view, like what equipment did you start on? Did he start on like Technics or like
So when I was 16, I bought a pair of CDJ 800s with a Behringer mixer, which was garbage. I met a guy in Sankey's when I was 16, and then he sold me this mixer for 75 quid. And then the following year, I got a pair of Technics. So I was 17 when I got Technics, and I think then I upgraded my mixer to like a DJM 600, and then I used them for quite a few years. And then I think upgraded the mixer to an XO92, and then I think I eventually bought some CDJ 1000s XDJs. So yeah, but it was good 3-4 years of just CDs, which now seems crazy to be burning CDs.
I know. Do you know, I just threw away. I had an external CD ROM drive, and I was just clearing through, my box full of wires and all that old shit that you have, right? And I was just clearing it through, and I thought, oh, I could put it on eBay, and then I thought, who's going to buy that?
Yeah.
It's the redundant format now, isn't it? CD. And then what about music production? What did you like? What was your first what was your first foray into that? What software or what hardware were you using for that?
A friend just installed Logic onto like my family computer around similar time to buying Dex 16, and then eventually I had a MacBook, and then my other friend, he was using Ableton. He was using Ableton since he was like 12, and he installed it for me around similar time. And just because he was better on that, I just started using that from like 16, and it was really just a matter of like just figuring it out. It took a long time to figure shit out because there was nothing like there is today. Like I've literally built a business since though because of all the problems I faced with trying to learn all this stuff. So yeah, it was just on a laptop.
Oh, that's cool. You're an Ableton guy now. I noticed like on your
Ableton, yeah. It was Ableton. I did Logic for about 2 months. Then I was like, there was no one to help me really with it. And then my friend was using Ableton, so it was just the logical thing, no pun intended, to move to Ableton.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now I like Ableton. I started off using a Commodore Amiga, which I got when I was about, I think it was my 14th birthday or for Christmas when I was about 13 or 14, and this software called Octamed. And this was before VST synths were a thing, and I didn't have any hardware either. So everything, it was like a little tracker, right? And the way you did it was you put samples into every line. So if you wanted to play something, you could play something, but it had to be like a sample based, like a piano note, right? And then you could create the sequence that you wanted just by using one sample of a piano note. There weren't any VST instruments or anything like that. It was so basic. So instead, you'd kind of it was actually a bit more like making tracks from loops. You'd use loops.
Yeah.
You could sample break beats, you could sample beats, you could sample stuff from records, and then you could kind of cobble it all together into a track. And it's like, it was difficult, but the restriction of the format also made you be quite creative in how you used it. And there are some people like Pete Cannon that still use it now, which is mind blowing. And it only had 8 channels, right? Which was called Octamed. The Amiga only had 4 channels of sound, but it used an interpolation technique to give you 8 channels. So it would basically just like you would use one channel and it would just play the sample, but it would chop it up into so many little bits per second that you could actually have 2 playing per channel at the same time. And it was very basic stuff, but it was kind of, I don't know, like when you learn on stuff like that, when you then upgraded, I then started using Cakewalk, which was like a PC based MIDI sequencer, and I had a load of MIDI like hardware in my little bedroom at home. It kind of made it really easy, right? When you then go to using stuff like that, and then jumping to Ableton is like mind blowing. And to some extent, I think like the kids these days have it quite easy, but on the other, because they don't have to go through that learning curve of that technological thing. And it was hard with MIDI because it's not just learning how to use the software, but there were lots of restrictions on the platform. Like the resolution of what you could send via MIDI wasn't very high, so you'd always get this like lag if you had a lot of notes playing a lot of instruments and stuff. But on the other hand, not having to deal with all of that, right? But the barrier to entry is much lower. Anyone can do it, and there's a lot of competition now, probably a lot more competition. Whereas in the olden days, when you needed to have spend quite a few £1,000s on hardware and stuff, and it was a high
Pros and
barrier
cons
to
in there.
entry.
There's pros and cons. Like, yeah, the barrier to entry's never been lower, but it also means that there's now never been as many good producers. Like, there's so many good people making tunes, man. But yeah, it's just raised the bar for everyone. So it's a tough one because like people kind of seem to forget that about the old days, that you had to buy literally a drum machine, a mixer, blah blah blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah,
blah,
yeah.
just to make a beat. And it's almost it's like the marketing thing as well with TikTok, right? People then complain about, oh, you can just use TikTok to get big. Well, it's like back in the day, you'd have to pay for a billboard, or you'd have to go and literally pay to get on the radio, etc. Like things, there's always been obstacles, just in different formats now.
Yeah, totally. And it's it was also in the olden days though, it was very much about networking, which it is still now, but it was about who you knew and networking and all that kind of stuff. You weren't, I don't think you were getting very far sending demo tapes off in the olden days. It was still about getting out there and getting and networking and getting to know people and talking to promoters and talking to venue owners or whatever,
Might
right?
just play the game in it either way. So it's, kind of my view on it is the ones that are willing to, I say, play the game loosely, like now, they would have been the same guys doing it then, and the same guys moaning now about whatever tools are available. They'd have been the guys moaning then saying, oh, you just got to go on network to get a gig, blah, blah, blah.
It's not exactly easy building a large social following, I can tell you. You know that as well, right? And even when you have some success in it and it does well, you have to stay on top of it the whole time because you've got algorithm changes, and then you've got so I'm in a different phase now to what I was in 6-8 months ago, and I have to approach it differently. I can't just keep putting loads and loads of content out there. It's got to be stuff that's more focused, and you have to get the balance right between showing your gigs and showing them as being fun and successful and getting people to come along, but also not wanting to look like your channel is just a promotional channel, because that switches people off, and you have to get that balance right. Always trying new things, trying different things. And it's building an audience is hard, maintaining an audience is hard, making sure the audience is the right audience that you want, that are gonna actually be active and come along to your events and stuff is hard. It's all difficult, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
people
I'll
only
be
see
honest
the
though,
little.
like with that, like, because just to kind of simplify for some people though, I have no strategy. I just kind of do what I do day to day and document it and just try and present it in a reasonably, aesthetic way, which kind of, like from the gig clips of the weekend, some pictures, some studio stuff, some running stuff. I try and just like keep it. My approach is, how can I post, somewhat frequently in a low friction way? Some people I think overcomplicate and they try and plan this master thing. Someone just fucking post. I think that's kind of like my approach. But yeah, it isn't easy either. you know, like I invest in these things, you know, having someone come help shoot the gigs and things like that. And like today I'm in the studio with someone someone's going to come get some bits, etc. But I kind of choose the approach of like, how can I just document what I'm doing? And then yeah, just share it to the world.
Yeah. It's it's certainly working for you. I can
Yeah.
tell you, you know, and
Yeah, there's loads of ways to do it though. I think people kind of try and figure out what the formula is. But like you say, you can kind of get technical with the terminology, like algorithm changes and all this kind of stuff. But I think just kind of trends always change over time. So I don't think you can ever really kind of nail something down and that be it forever. I think it's just being open to just change and knowing that things are going to change.
yeah, yeah. I guess I mean I didn't set out with a strategy at the start either, right? I was just, you know, like my social media was like a car channel for the first 3 years. I always had quite a lot of music on it though. And what I noticed really early on was when I put some music, because I was making these car videos and I thought it's a little bit dry, right? If I put some music in the background, it just makes it a little bit more interesting. And just like the second I did that, people started going, hang on a minute, why have you got house music? Why have you got drum and bass in the background of your car video? And I was like, well, because I'm massively into dance music. And I think people struggled with that to start with just because, you know, they just didn't think that necessarily quite fitted like my, you know, just my age and how I look. And they're like, what? So you like drum and bass? You're in your 40s or whatever. But I noticed that that was of interest to people. So I just kept doing it. It wasn't really contrived. And then I kind of got really into like collecting records, like buying back some of my old records because I sold a lot of my records stupidly when I went digital around 2005. And I started really missing them because as I got more active on social media, I was watching videos of people playing their records quite a lot. And I thought I saw quite a few that I used to own and I started rebuying them. And every time one turned up, not every time, but every now and again, I do a TikTok that was not about cars because I noticed this thing that we talked about right at the start where people genuinely are interested in finding out a little bit more about you as a person. So I'd go like, oh, something's just come to the front door. What have we got? And I'd open the record and I'd play it. And some of those videos would get much higher views than what I was doing with the car thing. So again, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like just going back to what you said. It wasn't like a part of a master plan. I just noticed it, and I thought, well, if people like that sort of content, I'll make a bit more. And it just got to the point where I noticed that the music videos were generally more popular than the car videos. And to be honest, I'm more passionate about music than I'm about cars. But it didn't even cross my mind when I started social media to do it about music, mainly because I thought that the audience were too young and they wouldn't find me relatable. And the cars is another big interest of mine. So it wasn't really planned, but once I saw that it had legs, obviously it was something that I focused on a bit more.
I
And I
think you
guess
just
it's
got
a bit like that for you with the running as well, right?
Yeah, you just got to lean into your interests because no one can beat you at being you. I think if you try and look at everyone else, see what they're doing, and try and post like them, oh, you know what, I'm going to post some car vids because Fish is doing it and combine it with music, then you're not being yourself. Like everyone's got to have some kind of interest that aren't the norm. Not the running's not the norm, it's completely standard, but I mean it's just combining different things and showcasing it in a certain way, in your style, in your tone of voice. It's going to end up being unique, but I think if you kind of overanalyze what other people are doing, but it's like with you, like this was posting a few runs whenever it was for the first time, maybe like 18 months ago. There was never really any plan to make that part of kind of my personal brand. Whereas, now to be fair, there is kind of some kind of strategy going forward. Like I would like to, work with an established brand on the running stuff. I'm going to do Barcelona Marathon next year. It would make sense to, potentially collaborate like you've done with some things with cars and things like that. It would make sense to going forward. And like I will consciously post more fitness stuff now we're out of summer again. But yeah, it's just kind of leaning into your interests and presenting them to the world.
Yeah, totally. And I think to be honest, like I said before, I think being just being really honest. I think you're something of a role model to some of these younger kids, especially, and doing having a fitness thing is such a positive message as well, because it can really motivate people. Everyone wants to, not everyone, I think the vast majority of people aspire to be fit and healthy, and it's hard. And I think if you see someone that you look up to and that you respect doing that, it's a positive thing and it can motivate people to do it. So I think it's a fantastic kind of secondary content pillar, not to sound too cynical about it, but it's just it is. But I've noticed that you smoke as well, right?
Two six man, never killed anyone, but yeah, I burned the candle at both ends. But at the moment, I'm kind of now in my more chilled era. I'm going to Saudi Arabia tomorrow. There's no alcohol in Saudi, but then I've got America the week after. So America, I'll party a bit. But But yeah, it's important to balance, because like, you know, you can't just be sending it every weekend and then chilling all week, wait for the next gig. That's a bad rut to get in.
Yeah, totally. I notice. So I've just been putting together this hardware studio, as you can probably see, right? And I absolutely love hardware. It's where I kind of started with Octamed. Then I went to Cakewalk and I started buying synths and stuff like that. And I love the hands-on thing. I've got the Arturia Mini Freak here. It's my little controller keyboard, but it's also got loads of sounds on. And I'm just absolutely loving it. I've only just got back into it, and it's just so hands-on, and you can, like with the VSTs, you can do anything you want with the VST. And it's so powerful. But with the keyboards and the synths and stuff, there's always that slight element of the unknown. And I noticed, I saw a TikTok from you a little while ago when you were I think you were like putting together a new hardware studio, or you just bought a load of new hardware and stuff. And I just wanted to talk to you about that and just find out like what your favorite pieces of equipment are, and like what your creative flow is, and whether you use any synths and stuff like that, really.
So I did an interview for DJ Mag in Spain recently talking about this process. So I started off very much inside the box, and then I bought the Korg Minilog after like 3-4 years. And it really opened up a lot of possibilities for me, just a different way of working. And then from there, I bought an Oberheim OB12, and then I just bought some bits and bobs, and kind of over time started to kind of collect. And then I ended up buying a Soundcraft Ghost mixer, which is a 24-channel one, around probably 3 years ago now, maybe even 4, probably more like 4 actually. And this is when it kind of opened up the possibilities to buy some drum machines. So I bought like the Isla Instruments S2400, which is a sampler, which is really cool. Bought an RM1X, and I went through this era of making tunes just all outside the box, which was really, really fun. However, over time, not intentionally, I kind of moved away from it. I think just the fact was, it takes longer. It honestly takes longer. I think as I've got busier, I want to get in the studio straight away and just dive in. Anyone that's used hardware will know, especially when you start to build out a bigger studio, you try and use a certain synth, it's no noise, the MIDI's not working, there's always something going on. So I'm now in a bit of a in the box kind of moment again. I'm using my Prophet 5 a lot, which is an expensive synth which I bought, which is insane. I am looking at buying a Mini Moog, the remake, but they're expensive.
How much
But
are
I
they?
think next year I kind of want to, you know, the Prophet and the Mini Moog, them two together, trying to kind of limit myself to a few synths. I wouldn't mind actually really reducing my setup just back to a few synths, like maybe 4 synths, a computer, sound card, no mixer. But then I know for a fact, like you're with your records, the minute you start selling stuff, you can look back thinking, why did I sell that? You know, certain bits I've sold in the past that I've regretted. But the moment my flow really is kind of go in, lay some grooves down, maybe get something from the Prophet, a little stab. I've got this synth called the Waldorf Micro Q, which is really, really cool. I like that one actually. But I'm using a lot of VSTs, but I do think I am a believer that hardware does sound better, but there also are limitations of it which can actually force creativity. But at the moment, yeah, I'm kind of mostly in the box, but I think next year I've really got this vision of stepping up my music to another level. And I would like to try and keep things more simple, you know, like you've got your Moog for your bass, Prophet for your stabs, and maybe another synth for some keys. And then we kind of build tracks around this certain sound. Whereas, you know, if you've got like, I think people always say, how do you get a sound? How do you get this? How do you get that? I think, you know, if you limit yourself to a few synths and a few plugins, etc., you can more likely to stumble across something which sounds a bit more unique. Whereas if every time you open a project, you're using a different VST, a different synth, and all these different things, it's always going to be a bit all over the show, which can be good. But also at the same time, I like the idea of kind of having a few things and just kind of tweaking them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that journey that you just described there is really interesting, because I was wondering, you know, you said you've produced like whole tracks out of the box. Like the current things I'm working on are all in the box. I've literally just got all of this stuff. I haven't got around to wiring it all up yet. So I've got like I've got, yeah, it's all like wired up for power, and I've just got the USBs, and then I've got like all the audio cables like in a big pile on the sofa just in front of me. And I'm going to have to take a couple of clear days to get that wired up, get it all working. But I've got what have I got here? I've got the Soundcraft. So this is in place of a mixer, right?
That's what I'm thinking about changing.
That's got like 24 inputs there, and you can use it to you can use it as a mixer without taking up all the space and without having to have that manual element to it. So you can
Exactly.
save all the scenes digitally, and I think that's a good compromise because it gives you all the inputs that I need for all my like synths and stuff, but without having without having that kind of manual thing. And then it makes it also difficult to jump between tracks if you've got a mixing desk, because you've got to like go back to like to recall everything. It's like, I don't know, it's got its pros and cons, right? It's very immediate and very hands-on, but also it's a bit restrictive. And the other problem with working with hardware, as you're well aware, which is I'm guessing possibly the reason why you moved away from it, is that you have to bounce your hardware stems at some point, right? And at that point on, it then becomes quite awkward and annoying to go back and change your note sequence or to change any element of the sound. Once you've recorded all of your loops and you've got them into your DAW, right? It's then tricky if you say, right, I want to change the arrangement slightly. Whereas obviously with the VST, you can just go into the arrangement view and change the notes. So the way that I was thinking around that is I'm going to focus on my tracks. I'm just using one synth like per track. So I'm going to do everything with VSTs, right? Except for every track, I'm going to use one synth for like the lead sound or the bass sound or something like that. So it's not too onerous if I want to go back, change it, make edits, but I can also use the distinctive nature of each of these different instruments to put a signature onto every track and give it a bit of interest from that extent. So that's my idea now for what my methodology is going to be. But you know how these things can kind of change once you get creative and start doing stuff. But that's my thoughts on how I'm going to get around that situation you just described, where in the end you get it, because I was doing it as well, right? My old hardware studio, you just get fed up with it in the end. You just think it takes so long to record all of your clips and stuff. That's when you can get it all working in the first place. You end up moving all your clips around and stuff, and it kind of reduces your flexibility a bit working that way.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Cool. So who are your like influences, like from a DJ and from a production point of view? Who would you say like your top like couple are?
I mean, I love Apollonius, Diet, Shonky, Dan Ganassia, Ricardo Lobos, then maybe, and then more recent artists, Chris Stussy, for example, like the way he's kind of, gone through heights, which I don't think anyone kind of thought was possible with this sound. He's like a superstar now, so he's really inspiring what he's done. Yeah, like a lot of the people around me, the You and Me crew, they really inspire me to kind of keep going. But yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm too like, okay, that's my inspiration. I really take inspiration from everything, certain tracks people make, certain ways people DJ. People like Porter, for example, the way he's sampling these tracks and creating things that's just so cool. The way people like Capriati DJ. Honestly, I'm a fan of a lot of things people do, and I wouldn't really say I've got kind of one thing that I go to. But I also really love the kind of more wonky and weird stuff that you can find at a place like Houghton. So yeah, for me, honestly, it's from a really wide selection.
Yeah, you're more of a Houghton than a Boomtown kind of guy.
Yeah. I really like if I was going to go and rave and listen to tunes and not partake in DJing, it would be someone like Houghton. That's the kind of roots and what like You and Me were really booking that kind of sound, and I was playing a lot of that sound a few years ago. And just things change and progress, like for me as an artist. So I kind of moved away from that. But as a listener, that's really what pricks my ears.
Houghton looks so good, honestly.
Yeah, so good.
It always clashes with Boomtown, right? So that's the issue that I have. And Boomtown's really like kind of my bread and butter sort of like festival. But I really want to get down to there one year because it just looks like the kind of vibe that's like, that's just kind of more just reminds me of what it used to be like in a kind of like in simpler days sort of thing. It just looks like very, very very, very authentic and real and stuff. Not that Boomtown isn't, but they're different sort of things, right? Different sort of crowds, And Houghton looks like very much like something I'd like to dip my toe in and give it a go, like as a raver. Do you get to go out much at all anymore, like as a raver?
No, because I playing twice a week now, and even if I wasn't playing, the last thing I'd do is go to a rave at the moment. Maybe in the future, but like the next Saturday or next weekend I get off, I'll be relaxing. I won't be going to a rave. But if I'm in Ibiza, for example, I was actually going to parties if I was staying an extra day or the day before. So I did get my fix and I had a great time. But in this next period, this next 6 months or so, any opportunities to relax, I will be doing so.
Yeah, mate, it's the same, to be honest. Busman's holiday. But like the one time I did get to let my hair down a bit this year was at Glastonbury, because I was performing there on the Thursday and on the Friday. And the Saturday and Sunday, I wasn't like, so Friday night, I was finished by about 9 p.m. I had an interview with old Danny Howard and Sarah Story on Radio 1 on like 9 p.m. on Friday. And that was like my last thing I had to do for work. So I was kind of free after that, and I went out and had some really, really big nights with my mates and stuff. That was super, super fun because if you're at a festival anyway, and Glastonbury's the one, right? There's so much going on there. But yeah, it's a bit of a busman's holiday, unfortunately, the rest of the time, Right, I just got a few little questions, a few little like silly ones at the end, right? Let's only take a sec. Right, mate. So fry up 4 ingredients. What would you go for?
Bacon, eggs. Is sourdough part of the fry up?
No, bread and toast are separate. You can have those anyway.
It's probably not like your standard, but avocado every time.
Yeah.
Avocado every time. I know it's not technically like fried. And then you know what? I'd keep it at that. I always eat it every single day. I like clean breakfast. I don't really like big English fry ups, I like keeping it clean.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. To be honest, it used to be like the high point of staying in a hotel for me, but I stay in hotels so much now that I just don't eat the fried breakfast at all anymore. I just have my 2 Weetabix. A bit
Yeah,
miserable.
I usually go for poached eggs, avocado, and either bacon or smoked salmon on sourdough. Like anyone
Healthy
YouTube
baker,
watchers have
well
seen
done.
me. Like I'm kind of like that's me always.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Fair enough. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Pistachio.
Pistachio.
Yeah.
Class, mate, class. I asked Ben Hemsley that, and he said like the Mars ice cream.
I love them actually. I actually love them. I have them almost every single day as my dessert in the evening.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Like you're in
yeah.
luck if you like them because it's the most like commonly available ice cream anywhere. Surely,
Yeah, they're unreal. They're unreal.
like because pistachio, that's like that's quite a rare, super
I
rare.
know, but that's a holiday gelato in Ibiza, like a nice one. But the everyday go to is probably the Mars or the Oreo sandwich is a good one.
Yeah. They are nice actually. They are the Maxi Bombs similar
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
right in
They go on.
Spain. Yeah, that's enough. The other one you can get in Ibiza, right, or in Spain, it's called Fantasmicos. It's actually a healthy one. It's like a little bag, right, and it's got about 5 or 6 little fruit flavored lollies in it. They've got like a little hard shell around the outside, and it's sort of ice cream in the middle, and they are really nice, right? You should just get one next time you see it. You get these. It's the sort of thing really. It's for kids, right? But the fact you get to eat like 5 or 6 of them is like a bonus, and it's not really unhealthy. And they're all different flavors, like different fruit flavors. It's actually quite nice, mate. So maybe there's a
Check that
little
one.
little tip there for Phantasmicos. Just wanted to say thanks for the support over the time that I've been talking to you as well. I know
Pleasure,
I was
man.
like when I started off and I had that night at Hidden, I had some questions about how it should work logistically, and you were really helpful then. And it's nice just to be able to support each other on our journeys on social media as well. And I think we're both like positive people that have seemed to be working hard and doing well and bringing good music to people. And I really appreciate your support on that. So I just wanted to say that as well.
Pleasure, man. Well, good to chat to you, bro. And yeah, I'll see you in a bit, man. Have a good day.
Yeah. Andy, enjoy your trip to Saudi Arabia and America, man. Take care.
Yeah,
See you
bro.
later. Bye.